starting already?
Well, I mean, I can always cut stuff out.
Okay.
You could try to do my intro, though, if you want to.
Jasmine author.
You gave me a theme song.
Yes, it did.
That's fun. Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome back to another Writers Wednesday. Today I am joined with a very special guest.
Oh, I'm Cameron. I'm Jasmine's husband.
Today we are going to be ranking very common tropes inside of stories, which could be inclusive of books, TV shows, movies, and we are going to rank them from our least favorite to our favorite. I will add in a list of all of the things that we put in on all of our flashcards in the description so that you guys can do this. This was inspired by Jack in the Books. He did it with another one of his friends, and it was pretty fun to see the comparisons between the two of them and the reasons why they ranked things the way that they did. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so we're starting off with our least favorite, and I will probably just have words across the screen as we are saying them, and then at the end we'll have a picture of the comparison. Okay, babe, so what was your least favorite?
The chosen one.
My least favorite, enemies to lovers.
Really?
Yes. Why was The Chosen One your least favorite?
I think that in most young adult fantasy or dystopian novels, there is always the main character is somehow chosen, and there's usually not a great explanation why, other than they just happen to be, I don't want to be calling anybody out, but divergent or, anything like that.
You can call it divergent, it's okay.
Just be better, and then you will be naturally the chosen one. It's kind of like the theory of if you have to say it, you're probably not. So if you say you're the chosen one, you're probably not.
The reason why it is my least favorite is especially for female readers and female viewers, they use this one a lot. It's not going to be like the girl is the enemy and the guy is the good guy. It always seems to be there's a bad boy and a good girl, and the good girl can fix him and stuff like that. But really, it's just trying to normalize very toxic relationships.
That's super fair.
Yeah.
I would like to see the flip-flop, the gender reversal of
Yes.
that. Either, a female enemy and the main character being a guy. I guess maybe it's happened before.
I'm sure that it has.
What.
I just haven't read or seen any show that has done that, but it's constantly the bad boy.
I mean, we were hoping for that in Kim Possible with Ron and Cheeto, let's be honest, but...
So what about the next one for you?
Love triangle.
Mine is also
Love
a triangle.
No one likes love triangles. Who does?
So many people do.
Besides Stephanie Meyer.
I think that the main problem that I have, especially with love triangles, is I unintentionally kind of put myself in the mind frame of the author whenever I am reading these books and these tropes, where I'm like, okay, what are they trying to accomplish with this? And I feel like every single time an author puts in a love triangle, the author is making it so incredibly obvious of who's going to be chosen.
Oh,
like
that's
they like think about like Hunger Games, for example. Like Peeta always does these incredible, amazing things for Katniss, and then Gale is just super whiny, and it's like, oh my gosh, you don't care about me. And Katniss is like, no, I just have PTSD. So many people were Team Gale, and I have no idea why, because they made it very obvious that Peeta and Katniss were supposed to end up together.
I just think they're overdone. I think there's a lot of other interesting romantic storylines that I think you could go through. Some different tropes that are a little better, and love triangles. It breeds toxicity to me.
Well, that also was something else that I was going to bring up, is I think it's just lazy writing. Like, it's easy conflict, just throw it in there. Oh my gosh, two people love you, and now you have to choose, and it takes up like 300 pages. You could do something way more interesting with romances than just a love triangle.
Exactly. If that's the only thing you have to go to, if that's the only conflict in the story, then it's a really boring story. Be better. Make better choices.
My next one, fake dating.
They don't end up together.
Oh, so you were not happy when you saw La La Land.
No, I was very irate.
For fake dating, I just feel like it's extremely predictable. If you're going to fake date someone, you're just gonna end up dating them, and that's it. Like, I'm not completely against it, but I also think it's not interesting. Like, all of the different movies and Wattpad stories that have come out that have become extremely popular have a lot of fake dating scenarios. It's the same story, it's just not very interesting.
As a young lad, I definitely followed the words of Andy from The Office when he says that every little boy dreams about his fairy tale wedding. I'm a hopeless romantic and have been since I was young. And so the idea of two people falling for each other and then they don't end up together, it frustrates me to no end. In my mind, if you love each other, you can make it work, unless there's like some really weird thing, like a New Girl when Jess and Ravi are then our cousins. That's different. But in most scenarios, you can make it work. But if it's just like, I'm moving to college, oh well, that's too bad. I work at the mechanic shop, and we're just gonna drift apart. Ugh, come on.
That's a Hallmark movie waiting to happen.
It is a Hallmark movie, I'm sure. Main character dies.
They don't end up together.
Oh,
yeah, so I was along the same wavelength. Yeah.
The main characters are the ones that are supposed to be the most relatable, and it makes me think about my own mortality, and I don't like it.
Oh.
I want them to live forever. I'm a big D&D fan, and all my characters, I don't want them to die. I don't want there to ever be an ending. I just want them to live happily forever.
I think that the reason why I said next they don't end up together, I feel like it's fine as long as there is a bigger overarching theme to it. For example, they don't end up together because one of them was extremely toxic or abusive and they got out of the relationship. It's not the worst, but like you said, if they were actually really in love and it was a really dumb reason, then it's like, okay, you're basically just teaching us that like sometimes people are good for each other and it just doesn't work out because of such and such reason. I don't read books and watch movies to be reminded about reality.
Boom.
I do it to escape reality.
Exactly.
So when you bring in too realistic of things where they're like extremely hard lessons, it's not my favorite. I'm like, I know this already. I don't need to be reminded of it.
We're all depressed. Leave us alone. Let us be happy and imagine happiness.
All right, my next one, forced proximity.
Fake dating.
Fake dating. Okay, what is your take on fake dating since I did mine?
Honestly, I don't have a lot of thoughts on it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in enough things for it to be a true trope for me. I feel like it's a little bit of a younger scenario. Like it's definitely either junior high school vibes, and it's okay. It's not my least favorite. It's not my favorite. I don't really have an opinion on it.
It's generally in the genre of teen romance. Teen romance is where this trope comes in a lot.
Right.
Forced proximity, I don't hate it, but I also don't like it. I feel like it can be done really well, and I also think that it can be done poorly. And a way that I think that it was done pretty well was actually in Stranger Things. Nancy and Jonathan are still kind of trying to deny the fact that they have feelings for each other, and then they stay over at a guy's house, and he's like, I have a couch, but I also have a love seat that turns into a bed. If you guys want to be more comfortable, I liked that there was an out rather than the, you went to a hotel and there's only a king bed left. Like, that's not, one, that doesn't happen because there are not very many king rooms. We've both worked at hotels.
We both worked at hotels. There's always a trundle. There's always a trundle.
There's always a trundle, and also the majority of rooms are two queens.
Yes.
Like, that is the majority.
Now, if there's only a king
rooms.
left, then there's only a king, but we always.
But you always have a trundle.
Always have a trundle.
And so,
or a bathtub.
So
if you really have to.
So the likelihood of actually having to share a bed is very unlikely.
Forbidden love.
Okay. Mine is main character dies.
I think we're at the midway point, so this is like where it starts to get why I like them rather than why I don't like them. I don't hate forbidden love. I think it's like an interesting thing. I mean, when we were dating growing up, it was kind of forbidden by her parents. Kind of. It's not like Romeo and Juliet or anything, but certainly I've experienced that, and that like frustration and heart-wrenching, like I just want to be with this person. I get it. So I think it does feel slightly realistic. I feel like most of the time it shows the difference in two identities, either two people of different socioeconomic statuses, two different families with different religions.
Could even be race.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the one with Jonah Hill. Love that one.
Yes. All right, so main character dies. I think that sometimes it is necessary to give the plot a fuller meaning. Main example that I think that I can take from it is Hamlet. Hamlet is not my favorite Shakespeare play, but I don't think that it would have been as satisfying if Hamlet didn't die. And I remember initially I was actually very upset when Hamlet died, and then I gave myself a minute to really think over the entirety of the play, and I realized that it wouldn't have actually made a lot of sense if Hamlet lived.
That's fair. And you know what? Sometimes it's not the worst trope. And I'm sorry. I am not an author. I'm not a reader. I prefer TV shows because I can't imagine stuff in my head. So I want to see it on a screen. Or So, Star Wars Rebels, if there are any Star Wars fans out there.
Oh no,
spoiler alert.
Spoilers! Yeah, big spoiler alert for Rebels.
Yes, but it's been out for a while, so if you haven't seen it, you don't want to. When Kanan dies, it's heart-wrenching, it's awful, but that one actually, I agree, it had meaning, and it gave the rest of the team the ability to move on. So I think I'd rank that actually higher than I did before. So
yeah, but I mean, it doesn't make it any less hard. It doesn't make it any less heartbreaking or upsetting. You still get the same upset, but you get a little bit of closure.
Yeah.
Villain's perspective.
Forced proximity.
Now, I am only just barely reading a story that is in the villain's perspective, and it's like a villain's backstory. That's the book that I am reading right now that you got me.
Yeah. What is it called?
Thrawn.
Haha, Star Wars. Everywhere.
I don't think that I've just experienced very many perspectives of the villain, so I feel like I kind of like that secondary point of view, and also gives a really, really great segue into a potential hero arc, which I love, where initially in the beginning, they're the villain, and then later they come to understand, like, oh, this wasn't the right thing to do, I need to change my mind about certain things. We always love a really good, villain to hero arc, Zuko being top tier. That one is the best one, and I have seen some pretty dang good ones.
I
that
disagree.
one is really?
It's not the best one, but I'll go over it when I get to my part.
I think I know what you're gonna say. I think I know whose you're gonna say.
I don't think you do, but
Really? Okay.
maybe.
And also, I feel like if they are able to go through that arc, it makes their character interesting because they see both sides of the situation and they're able to grasp the actual problem a little bit more. We love villains to heroes.
Yeah, forced proximity I don't mind as much, and I think that's because I think that forced proximity doesn't always have to be you have to share the last bed because there's only one bed left in this dystopian world. It can also be forced proximity throughout plot line. You're forced together because you're both fighting a common enemy, or you're forced together because you have a goal and they have a goal, and even if they don't align, the path to get to that goal is going to be similar, so you're going to go together. I think forced proximity a lot of times occurs within the realm of either friends to lovers or enemies to lovers. Very much Hunger Games, Katniss and Peeta. Even though they don't have to share the same bed, they're certainly forced together in the Hunger Games, and they are forced to rely on each other. And so I think that one is an interesting one.
I didn't think of it that way.
Grumpy versus Sunshine.
Forbidden love.
I honestly can't think of a lot of examples of this. I'm sure there are. You know what? The only one I can think of is the movie Enchanted.
Yeah.
I do love that. I love the one person who's super, I don't even know if it's pessimistic, but at least realistic. Yes. And the one over-enthusiastic one. It feels very comedy-esque. There's always like the straight man and the funny guy. I love those kind of duos. So the idea of someone being incredibly excited and go-getter-esque is awesome, where there's the other person to bring them back down to earth, and then vice versa, bring them up from, being boring. So.
They balance each other out.
Exactly.
So I said Forbidden Love next because I feel like it's a classic. The more forbidden it is, the more they want it. It is a driving force of a romance plot. Like the movie that we were mentioning before, where they were of different religions and different races, and both of their parents were having a very hard time getting along together. It almost kind of made it feel all the more special that the couple got along together, despite them having different, backgrounds and different beliefs, and they still loved each other. The Chosen One.
I have, and this is top 3, villain's perspective.
Oh wow, we're in the top 3?
We are in the top 3,
Man,
I think.
your last one was one of my top 3? Okay, here's the thing. I think that this can be done well, and I also think it can be done poorly. So the reasons why you hate it, I absolutely agree with you, because those are ways where the Chosen One is done poorly. And I think a good way the Chosen One is done is in Kung Fu Panda.
Oh.
Yeah, where he is the dragon warrior, but realistically, he's not any special than anybody else. He is just the first one to figure out, I guess, the solution to the issue was. Anybody could have done it, but he was the first one to do it and the optimal person to do it. I think it would be better to say, like, you are the optimal person to do this versus you are the only person who can do this. Because imagine if the only person who wanted to do it was, like, not interested. Where it's like, no thanks.
Wow, I had not thought about Kung Fu Panda, but
Isn't that interesting?
That's a really good point. It's more of a thrust into this role. You're put into a role that you don't want to be in, and that's much more interesting than just like you somehow assume the position.
Is there an ice cream truck?
There is an ice cream truck. I saw it way over there. Villain's perspective, I think the reason I like this so much is because as someone who would consider themselves more empathic, I really, really like seeing other perspectives. Oftentimes I think heroes can be overrated, and I think we like to have someone to cheer for and someone to root against, but the way that I look at it, it's more fun to have kind of this like moral ambiguity. Two favorites that I can think of, maybe you did guess one of them, is Megamind.
Oh, I didn't think of Megamind.
Megamind is probably the best villain perspective movie in the world, I think. It is such a good, and it shows exactly what I think is that a lot of times villains are put in their own roles. They are the chosen one, but on the other side, they're like the anti-chosen one.
I always forget that Megamind is a villain because he's just a silly goofy guy.
I know, he's a silly goofy guy, but honestly, I think most villains are.
It makes you realize that villains aren't just like bad guys, but they're also people. Like, they're just people on the other side of an issue. I can understand that.
My next one is enemies to lovers.
Friends to lovers.
There it is. I love anything to lovers. I think that anything that goes from no romance to having romance is just fun and it's exciting, and I don't care if it was the bad guy or if it's the good guy. Honestly, the other one I like that wasn't in this list but I really like is enemies to friends.
I think I like that one better.
That's my favorite arc in Rebels is Callus and Zeb going from enemies to best friends more so than enemies to lovers.
Yeah, I think that that's also something that I feel like enemies to lovers kind of misses. I am totally okay with enemies to friends and then friends to lovers. Because I feel like there needs to be a little bit of a crescendo.
Friends to lovers, why?
I feel like we were kind of friends to lovers.
Yeah.
I guess that it's just a nice feeling to know that the person that you are going to be with already knows you so well as a friend, and because of that, the relationship is more likely to be a good relationship because you were friends beforehand.
Next one.
Next one, Grumpy versus Sunshine.
I have friends to lovers as number 2. For the exact same reasoning, it allows for a deeper romance, and it also allows for other main characters to exist that aren't part of the relationship.
And I feel like a lot of rom-coms do that.
Oh, it's classic. Chandler and Monica, Schmidt and Cecilia.
The reason why I said Grumpy versus Sunshine is because, similar to what you said, I think that this can go beyond romantic relationships. Straight guy, funny guy. And they balance each other out, and usually they're always paired up as being best friends, which is my favorite. Classic Joey and Chandler.
Oh,
classic. And I think that a good example of a relationship that works really well with Grumpy and Sunshine, April and Andy from Parks and Rec.
Oh, good one. Wreck-It Ralph and Vanellope.
Yeah! I forgot to give Cameron this card. I thought that I wrote this one down for him, but we both agreed that this is our top number 1 favorite.
Found Family.
Found Family.
We were supposed to say that at the same time.
Oh, sorry. Found Family.
There it is.
That sounded so cheesy. I love it.
It did. Nothing makes me cry more. Nothing makes me feel more than a group of people who have come together under a certain set of circumstances and created relationships from that, especially when those relationships are really deep and impactful. It kind of breeds this like non-separation. Maybe that's just my separation anxiety talking, but I think that you can't choose who your family is originally, but you can choose who they are later in life, and that's really exciting when you find people that you gel with so well or that you've experienced really hard things with.
We are very pro-trauma bonding here.
Yes. Yes.
I feel like it's just like, kind of like what you were saying, I feel like it's a very pure version of love that doesn't have any strings attached to it. And I feel like it can't be overused. You know, it's always a classic because I feel like it's very true to life too, like in a good way.
And it allows for connection past the romance. So we're love triangle, there has to be a pick. You know, you pick one or the other and the other person goes by the wayside.
Or you lose them.
Yeah, you lose them. In Found Family, you don't have to lose them because you're connected.
That is so interesting that we had our very bottom one was each other's more top tier ones, but in the end, we both had like the same top 3 favorites. We did it. Well, thank you for watching. I hope that you guys found this interesting with all of our different comparisons of book and TV characters and also just references from D&D.
If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, I think. Is that what you say?
Yeah. I mean, actually, I think that you should say the outro because you actually speak Japanese.
Sayonara. Arigato ne.
Is that how you
聞
say
いてくださってありがとうございます。
Wow.
さようなら。
See you next time. Bye.